So I have notes, outline, etc.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess we'll give it a sec and then we can get started. Figure if somebody's gonna join, they'll join soon.
Yeah, I guess I can share this.
What? Of course you should share this.
I don't do this a lot.
Oh, look, Cinder's here.
My man Johnny.
Do boys, what it do?
I didn't think that that was your voice. I regret inviting you.
No, I'm a black guy now.
Oh, okay.
What can you put your notes on the Jumbotron so we can reference them?
No.
Okay.
You need notes, John?
Know that
That
you
sounds very
don't know how.
professional.
I can talk to you about Nashville until I'm blue in the face. We're talking about the Robert Altman film, right?
No.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you're the only other person I know who's seen that.
I've seen it recently. Like I'm working on that John Slaughter, Chris Sandbach detective movie script, and that was one of the films that I was recommended to watch.
Is that
I
like?
see.
Never mind.
I've seen it before. Is that why what?
Nothing. I'm thinking of like 5 things at once. I need to focus.
So it looks like we have actually somebody listening, the Fading Giant podcast. I'll have you know, Fading Giant, that I have indeed gotten a second base before.
Haven't they all gotten to second base? Isn't that the
Oh yeah, no,
the
that's
selling point?
their thing. But
Okay.
you know,
What is the second base? Is that heavy petting?
yes.
Okay. I mean, I know what it is, but tell me what you think that is.
Yeah, no, it's like when you grab a bag of sand.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. I know.
I hate that Tiara is so much funnier than me.
Coarse grain. It's that coarse grain, right? Am I right, fellas?
Sure.
None of that play sand bullshit.
Sure, John.
Can you humor me on this? Come on. I need
No,
help.
you're the one who's supposed to be humoring me.
I'm trying.
You're failing. All right. Well, I guess we'll just do this with one listener. There, Mr. Mackey, and
I mean, are you in a rush? You got a hot date?
I am a hot date, but
Did you just call your wife ugly?
no, I'm saying that she's lucky to have me.
Yeah, but I mean, like, never mind. Bad joke. I'm not doing well here. I'm betting 0.
That's about average for you.
How many Evan Williams Coke Zeros are you in, JL?
I just finished a shock top, and now I have a double whiskey and Coke.
Oh, good. So we're getting fun, Mackie.
Yeah, like I said, I just got home off the road not too long ago, so I haven't had, like, I couldn't drink and drive in the company vehicle. You know, I try not to do that
standards.
very often. As fast as I was driving.
Drive on company time. Yeah, go ahead. I'm really excited for this because I thought I was a hater, but you are like the king of haters.
Yeah, I'll get into that. What were you going to say, John?
Are you in Central Time right now?
Yes, sir. I'm in Alabama.
Okay. What? Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know. I don't know where the split is, man. Once I get beyond Chattanooga, I'm in like unknown territory.
Alabama, Georgia line is time zone for the most part.
That's the one place I didn't go, John. I didn't go to Chattanooga.
I wish you would have known, man. I got family. I got people north of Knoxville.
Dude, I missed a lot in Knoxville. I didn't even go to the McCarthy statue. I didn't even know they had one. I'm pissed. Nobody talks about the McCarthy statue. It's weird.
I didn't know it existed.
We looked at all those stupid fucking lists of like, hey, here's what you can do, and you can go to that stupid Sun Sphere, at the old World's Fair. This is how you know that like Knoxville is a third tier city because they hosted the 1983 World's Fair. Didn't even know they had World's Fair in the 80s. And I guess their theme that year was solar technology. So they just built a big observation deck. It's like 3 or 4 stories tall, right, which is the biggest building in Knoxville. And you can kind of see maybe like 30 feet away. I would have definitely preferred the McCarthy statue, but I did go to like a really cool used bookstore that special. It's like one of those antiquarian collector places. I wrote about it in the article.
God, that story felt like it was a year long, bro.
You know what, JL? I'm real sick of you. I was gonna be nice tonight, But
I think the people came here for our rivalry. That's why they're
yeah,
here.
no, they came from my witty banter and your sad, pathetic, like retorts.
God, I got to put a Zen in now.
I just came to hear about what your opinion on that new Beyonce country album is. Like, is this the rebirth? Is she Randy Travis 2.0?
I will drive to wherever you are and unalive you right now, son.
Wait,
will.
you don't think that Beyonce can pull off country music? Apparently, she doesn't either because they were like mean to her or something. I'm really glad that at least country music kind of bullied Beyonce
I don't
in
know
like
anything
their
about
tepid,
that.
like limp wristy way.
Like in the BoomerCon kind of way. Yeah. Well, it's 9:05. I expected there to be at least 500 people in here, given how many people liked and retweeted, but I guess they're all lame.
They're busy. Conan's on tonight. That's not true. Conan doesn't have a show anymore.
So I figured I would do some ranting and talk about, I guess, some quantitative stuff and some qualitative stuff about country music, and then I figured John and TR can chime in where they maybe disagree with me or agree or other thoughts they have, and then beyond that we could open it up to anyone else who wants to rant or maybe call me an idiot. That's fine too. TR does it every day.
You're an idiot.
I don't want to get like super in the weeds about like trying to define country music. We all generally know what country music is. You can argue edge cases about what is and is not country music. I mean, we all know what country music is. Generally, so suffice it to say, we know. But I'll take the definition, generally speaking, of country music concerning really simple instrument usage. There's no wild guitar. There's no insane drums. Instruments largely serve the vocalist and the song that they're singing, right? The story they're telling, or lack thereof, maybe. But we'll get to that.
It's really like bluegrass maybe has a few like solos for instruments, but otherwise, yeah, you're right on. It's mostly a vocal sort of storytelling medium.
I would argue that most traditional bluegrass does not have solos, but we can get into that later. But I think country music largely is defined by the contents of its songs. John's already thumbing me down.
You're an idiot.
I think country music largely concerns its content, right? It's generally very blue collar. It's pastoral. It's about rural living. It's about every man's struggles and experiences and things like that. Love lost, people dying, achieving things, etc. Stuff that most people can relate to. And I think a lot of country music, at least it used to, this isn't the case anymore, which again we can talk about later, is not only talking about blue collar content, but also glorifying it, including the way a lot of country musicians used to dress, in Wranglers boots, cowboy hats. I mean, most of the people, there are some exceptions, but most of them were not notable cowboys or ranchers or farmers, but like it's a deep appreciation of rural culture, and that's a lot of what the South is agricultural based, cattle farming, etc. So with that out of the way, let me take a sip of this stiff drink. For the quantitative stuff that I looked at, I based most of this off of the Billboard Top 100 every 5 years since 1970. So 70, 75, 80, 85, etc., all the way to this year, or last year, I'm sorry, because this year isn't done. I looked at a couple different trends, and I have extensive Google Sheets, spreadsheets. But some things that stood out to me that was interesting and kind of plays into my personal anecdotal sentiments is the fact that since from 1970 to we'll say 23, song length has gone up on average. I don't have figures for average song length by decade, but they were frequently less than 2.5 minutes, and now it's very common to have. Why are you downvoting me? What do you got to say, John?
Stop the space and go get the song length numbers.
Oh, fuck you.
We're a serious podcast here, JL, and you're out here not with your figures and your numbers. This is looking very bad on ours.
You're really harshing my vibe, and I'm gonna go say bad things about your cat in a minute. So song length has gotten longer, but unique word count has stayed about the same, which is interesting. For your average 2.5 to 4 minutes, 3.5, 4 minutes song, you're looking at between 120 and 180 unique words. Unique words, which means that if song length is increasing and your unique words is staying the same, then you're just repeating stuff. And this plays into what we all know, kind of anyone who listens to even a marginal amount of country music, is that it has largely become overly lenient on the chorus, the catchy 4 or 6 lines that gets repeated over and over again, that serves as the crux of the song. The rest of it is just, window dressing to make it 2 minutes, and that's it. It's this chorus, and that's what everyone remembers. People can't remember the other shit, and that's how it goes. So another thing that stood out to me, I used GPT for the unique word counts, by the way. I didn't do that by hand. That would have taken forever. Another thing that's been interesting to me since 1970, although obviously I'm not making the claim that country music started in 1970, was musician persistence. So from 70 to, let's say, 85 or 90, country music was dominated by a handful of the same people. People like Reba McEntire, Garth Brooks, George Strait in the later years, a lot of the women. Let me just pull this up.
You didn't get Dolly Parton on that list?
That's why I'm pulling it up, because I'm not
kind of a
good
BS list without Dolly. Not gonna
y'all
lie.
are really fucking harsh on my vibe here.
Your vibe
that is not hard to
nervousness.
That's why I have alcohol and nicotine.
That makes it worse, dude. That just brings the stress levels up. I hate
you're doing an upper and a lower at the same time. You're just gonna stay nervous.
How about you just let me do my thing? You're making it weird now. People are listening. They're like, what the fuck is going on here?
People were listening and they left.
Anyway, so for the first, from 70 to, let's say, 85 or 90, it's dominated by these handful of people that continually put out hits. Again, I'm looking at Billboard Top 100, so there's some variation in here. They're making most of the bangers that hits the top 100, and they're staples, so to speak. And starting in about 2000 to 05, they become less prominent, and the charts start looking. It's just a slew of people. There are a handful of people: Toby Keith, Tracy Lawrence, Jason Aldean, who, they persist, but the number of musicians who are persisting across long stretches of time is becoming decreasing. Which, all that to say, there's a much higher turnover, and it becomes more and more frequent, especially since 2010, that people only appear on the top 100 list once. People like Tyler Farr, never heard of him. Kanan Smith, never heard of him.
So, would you say that that's, and I'm sorry to cut you off, and you're probably going to get there, but would you say that that's are all these guys are using the same songwriters and they're kind of being thrown out like used condoms?
Maybe, but I do have that. I do have that on my list. I think it's an interesting point. But since you mentioned it, songwriting percentages has been about the same. Most of the really big names like Tim McGraw, George Strait, Garth Brooks, they're not writing most or even a lot of their own songs. They're writing very few, relatively speaking, given their very, very large discographies. They're writing, 10, 20% probably at most on average. That's a very rough number. It's been a couple weeks since I looked at all this, because it took a while. But yeah, so set like 70 to 80 was a little bit higher prominence of people who are writing their own stuff. Notably people like Hank Williams Jr., David Allan Coe wrote most of his songs. He's kind of an outlier, probably writing, I don't know, 60 to 80% of his own stuff. But otherwise, on average, it's been about the same. There have also been a lot of, I guess we'll call them performers, because a lot of these people just sing. They don't even play guitar or anything. A lot of them are writing songs for other people, like notably where's he at? Hold on, he's on my Kane Brown. Kane Brown's a really big guy right now, and I hate his music, but we'll get to that. He writes a good bit of his own songs, but he's also written a lot of bangers for other country music artists, which is interesting. I don't know what plays into that. I didn't dig too far into the dynamics of songwriting, but that's been about the same, which was kind of surprising to me. I would have expected that percentage to go down noticeably since 1970, but it hasn't, as far as I can tell. And then instrumentation usage, guitars, fiddles, banjos, pianos, things like that has gone down dramatically. It's I think it was probably Morgan Wallen and probably around 2020 that started using like drum beats, like artificial drums, and got really popular off of it. He also interestingly writes a very very large portion of his own songs and songs for other people. But that's been a big thing since 2020 is the almost complete disappearance, at least as far as again Billboard 100 goes, and we can get into everyone else in a little bit here. As far as like top 100 songs go on the radio, album sales, whatever the hell, those things have mostly disappeared, which saddened me to a great degree. And then as far as kind of the qualitative stuff, that's not really numbers based, but it's just based on my very, very extensive personal listening of country music, is the general movement away from telling a story that has a beginning, a middle, a resolution of some kind, to it being kind of like just like a bullet list of things that people feel like they have to tick off in order to call this song country. You have to mention fishing and beer, maybe driving drunk, white picket fences, idyllic fields, et cetera, et cetera. Y'all know what I'm talking about. A lot of people would call that like stadium country, and there's no shortage of people who make that kind of stuff. Morgan Wallen is definitely one of them. Luke Combs is a big one right now. Jason Aldean, probably the largest perpetrator of this. Dan and Shay, Parker McCollum, Ian Munsick, Cody Johnson. It goes on and on. That's a very large portion of country music right now. And that largely started, again, around, I would say, between 2000 and 2005. Country music started turning that way.
Now, I've heard an interesting theory out there, and I got kicked for a second, so I didn't have the mic. Otherwise, I would have interrupted you several times. But like the Dixie Chicks having a big part of why country kind of lost its edge and was pretty neutered because of their sort of they were against Bush in the Iraq War.
Right. Say more.
No, I mean, hey, listen, you're the guy that knows. I'm the Yankee who's only just sort of started listening to country myself. But I remember it was a big friggin' deal. I'm trying to keep it family friendly, but it was a big deal that they were like against the war and they became like liberal media darlings overnight. Even though nobody could name a song by them, I certainly can't. But also, slight digression. Now they're the Chicks. I'm trying to keep it Christian, but what? Yeah, what's
they're not the first instance of a country music band changing their name.
No, I know. Lady Antebellum is now Lady A or whatever, and they were good. I remember them.
Go ahead, John.
Tell me why that happened, John.
I can't tell you that, but I can tell you that the soul of country began to die with the betrayal of Garth Brooks when he took on the Chris Gaines persona. And that's really when people started to turn.
That's an interesting point. Has you or anyone else in here, all 8 of us, watched the Garth Brooks documentary that goes relatively in depth about this?
Hell no. But is it interesting?
I watched it. It is interesting, in kind of a strange, almost macabre way, in my opinion, because he is so like, it's very hard to explain like how intense of a person he is. It's weird, but from what I remember, I watched it like 4 or 5 years ago, so my memory may be hazy. But from what I remember, the Chris Gaines album was made as a soundtrack to a movie. And so the Chris Gaines persona, it was made for like a project of some kind. I think it was a movie. and that's why it was such a large departure from what he normally makes, and why it seemed like an alter ego of sorts. It wasn't just like out of the blue, which makes it less weird. I've never
Yeah.
listened to that album actually, as much as I've listened to Garth Brooks. I've also seen him in concert on a stadium tour, but
How much you pay for those tickets?
those were, I think, between $200 and $300 a piece. I didn't pay for them.
Damn.
Man, that's huge.
That was a sold out 55 or 60,000 person stadium. But anyway, good show though. Great performer. I'll give him that. But that's most of like the trend stuff that I had. It's also really interesting to me, and it's kind of hard to glean a lot of truth from it for obvious reasons. But it's interesting to look at, and this kind of plays into talking about newer guys who are making really good country music. It's interesting to look at Spotify plays, like people like Garth Brooks and George Strait. Well, actually, Garth Brooks isn't on Spotify, but George Strait, all
Garth
the
Brooks
really
isn't a
big
Joe
names,
Rogan guy.
Toby Keith, all of the really big country guys from the 90s through the early 2000s have obviously massive amounts of Spotify plays, partially because they have large discographies, and also obviously because they're still insanely popular, because they made good country music, or performed good country music, I should say. But it's also really interesting to me to look at relatively new guys like Zach Bryan or Coulter Wall or Sturgill Simpson, or a handful of other people who still get massive amounts of plays, and they are never on the radio. And this is probably a confluence of a lot of other things that we can talk about, and kind of plays into the, excuse me, the business of capital N Nashville. But that's really interesting for me to see, like, for Garth, or for George Strait to have, like, 100 million, not 100 million, maybe like 10 million monthly plays, and then Zach Bryan to have a very, very similar number, despite having a much smaller discography and being relatively new. And like, when I say household, just a second, TR, when I say a household name, I mean people who even don't listen to country music at all, nor know who George Strait is. They know he's a prolific and long-standing country music performer, right? Those same people have no idea who Zach Bryan is, or Sturgill Simpson, or Coulter Wall, etc. So it's interesting to me to see how large their numbers are relative to the household country music names. And I think probably, if anything, speaks to, well, younger people who are getting into country music, or have been into country music, and they're more adventurous when it comes to trying to find new stuff, new good stuff. But also, I think, kind of speaks to the cult following that some of these people develop, probably because of social media. It's easier for them to get music out there, and that's largely a domain of younger people. What's up, TR?
This is a storytelling medium, right? Country music. The instrumentals. Well, I mean, I think that the musicians are very talented. The instrumentals kind of take a backseat, as you were saying. And my problem with country music, especially nowadays, it's just so shallow. Like, and you were kind of alluding to that when you were talking about the metrics. But my God, I mean, it's like my wife likes this one song by Jordan Davis.
Yes.
Next thing you know, or whatever, and it's like, yeah, I
Yes.
mean, it's like it's pulls at the heartstrings or whatever. But like, you compare that to something written by Don Schlitz, and you're like, this is like two different genres. I don't get it, because the writers are still the same.
Well, it's all about the metrics now. So this goes to the central thesis of this whole space: is Nashville killed country music, because when it became an institution, it became about the numbers. And when they started analyzing what was popular, they started analyzing why, and then they started they started establishing those as trends and putting them in other songs and having other artists sing about it. And as it grew as an industry, they would pick people that fit the stereotype of the act or the archetype of the performer, rather than people with a story who cut their teeth in honky tonks on the road singing about the bad things they did and how Jesus Christ changed their life, but they still drink real hard.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with that. I think it's a bit of a vicious cycle that, like, Nashville caters to what people listen to, and what people listen to is based on what Nashville is putting out. Like, I think the vast majority of people, let's narrow it down a little bit. People are using Spotify. Like, let's say I want to listen to Zach Bryan. I put on Zach Bryan radio. Is that playlist is going to be determined ostensibly by what other people are listening to in addition to Zach Bryan on their personal playlists or whatever they listen to. So it's this self-reinforcing thing. And I also think real quick, I also think songs like that is, I mean, women have always listened to country music, but I think it's largely, at least mostly, been the domain of male listeners. That's totally anecdotal, but I think that's probably the case, especially when it comes to outlaw country or cocaine country. So I think songs like that are an attempt to get women back into the fold, because I know a lot of people, or a lot of women, excuse me, who love very touchy-feely stuff like that, like Kane Brown when he sings with his wife, and it's like, I thank God that, I get to be married to you. I thank God that we had a child and that I met you. And it's like, it's very, very,
I love it.
I'm not trying to make like commentary on the level at which women think versus men or anything like that, or the level at which they appreciate art or music in general. But I definitely think it's an
But
attempt to
that's
cater to girl listeners.
to me, that's fine, right? Because again, I bring up somebody like a Don Schlitz, like some of these guys who write these really intense ballads, right? And they're just lyrically dense and interesting, and it's actually poetic rather than just this monotonous, uh like Deeper Than the Holler is a beautiful song that's
Yes.
been written like 50 different times, but the reason that it's beautiful is because he's using his own experiences in life to make the comparisons. Like it's he's trying to do the Shakespeare thing, right? But with a country twang, if that makes sense. Like yours, and a rose by any other name would be as sweet. He's saying that with a southern drawl, or at least he's trying to. I'm not trying to compare the two necessarily, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I totally co-sign, and it's another kind of anecdotal thing, but I think we can all agree on, if we listen to any reasonable amount of country music over the years, is that for whatever reason, even though the percentage of ghost writers is the same, it has felt as though country music has lost like heart and sincerity and some kind of, I hate to use the phrase, I apologize in advance, lived experience. Like when Randy Travis sang that song, I believe that he experienced that particular nuance of emotion, and that's what makes the song so enjoyable. When I hear Jason Aldean sing about Try That in a Small Town, I can't help but think he's lived in a mansion most of his adult life, and he is insulated from the average person most of the time, and it's just not at all relatable, or at the very least it's not moving, because I can't be convinced that he experienced anything like that.
Well, and surely his idea of a small town is motherfucking Murfreesboro. Sorry, like,
Yes.
and so I can pinpoint. Sorry for the F word, Tr. I know that offends you.
I'm a
to
good
to
Christian boy.
to when the Grand Ole Opry went from a showcase venue to a theme park.
Yes.
Like, it happened in our
Absolutely.
maybe a little bit before us, but within our lifetime, right? So it became
Yes.
like the country music experience, and that I'm like, it happened to fucking Dollywood too. Like, you go down to Pigeon Forge, it's a tourist
Yes.
town,
Yes.
right? And
I really liked Pigeon Forge, but because
beautiful.
it was so cheesy, it was so it felt like a carnival that was just gonna fall over at any second. I thought that was really endearing.
Yeah, that and that I love. But really quick, I wanted to say, Avis down here in the chat has been posting country music bangers all day, like straight tub thumping stuff.
Hell yeah.
Not overly sentimental, nothing like that, but like really good, like Sam Batch level musical curation.
Oh, I'm totally gonna followed.
Mackie followed a girl.
Is she a girl?
No, but the curation, the country music curation from that side is really excellent. There's really excellent unknown stuff out there, but again, these people, like, our lived experiences now become so artificial that our expression of that experience is artificial as well.
Yeah, like an interesting exception, and which is, it's not really part of the reason why I appreciate his music, but why I appreciate him as a person, is the fact that Coulter Wall makes amazing country and western music. I have some of his music on vinyl, that I listen to at every opportunity. When he's not touring, he spends his time in Canada as a ranch hand. You probably can't say that about anyone in Nashville, or most people. And somehow, in some kind of way, in my sentimentalist romantic heart, it comes through. I believe him when he talks about riding a horse, because he's probably fucking doing it 6 months out of the year. What's up, TR?
No, I was also gonna say, what was it? That guy Richmond, north of Richmond or whatever, like that song was like super popular for like 3 months.
Oliver
But even
Anthony.
yeah, but even him, I might not like the guy necessarily, but he wrote a song that people identified with because it was real. You know what I mean? Like we're so starved for authenticity and
Yes.
and and this not theme park type shit that
Yeah.
the most basic, hey guys, maybe Washington's kind of fucking us, and I guess I'm just going away with the family friendly stuff, but um it's like we're so starved for that the most basic level of it will take and will make the most popular song and then drive it into the ground by playing it at a political rally.
Yeah. He's an interesting example of, in my, again, this is just my personal opinion. I'm just a shit ass on the internet. Doesn't really matter. I don't think he's a particularly good songwriter as far as good songwriters go. I don't think he is. But what's important is I think the song was sincere and it hit home. You know what I mean? His other music, it was just okay. I mean, I've heard better stuff from randos on YouTube. That's okay. That's fine. Not every song some guy makes can be a banger. I'm not going to hold that against him. But yeah, I agree. I think that's why it was good, for lack of a better word, is because it was sincere and it hit home and it was relatable. The only other thing I have is kind of the current state and the future of country music, and it seems to me that it's become, in some way, in like the cultural zeitgeist, has become a little more relevant. Like, I'm constantly thinking of that. I think it's Barbara Mandrell. I was country when country wasn't cool, and and then it was cool in like the 80s through the
Country wasn't
maybe.
cool in like 1920. Then it was super cool when the Opry started. Fuck that.
Well,
Thank you.
I don't think Chet Atkins was ever cool. I mean, awesome dude, but I don't know that he was like killing it with anyone but the boomers of that time. I don't even know who would have been there. Who would have been the boomers at Chet Atkins' time?
Y'all love to finish me before I can drive it home, huh?
I'm trying to help you, man. I feel like you're drowning, and I just keep throwing you all
I'm
these gold lifeboats, and you just keep
I'm
drilling
not.
holes in them with your list.
No, I was
All right.
just saying that I think about that song, which came out in I believe, the early 80s, uh, about how being country before was cool, which was probably the 80s, I would say, through the mid 90s. That was trendy. Country music was particularly big. And then it kind of died off, let's say around 2000 to 2005. And I think it's circling back around again. I think a lot, again, also kind of a little bit anecdotal, but a lot of what white boys are playing during White Boy Summer, as evidenced last weekend by the kids across the street who are doing the "You Honk We Drink" thing, is that kids and like young boys, males, young men are listening to country music, and so I think there's this desire from Big Nashville and whoever else, the powers that be, to try and stick their hand in that pot again, while try and strike while the iron's hot. And I think that's part of why Beyonce put out her country album. And I'll say that I only listened to that one song, Texas Hold'em, and I listened to it 10 minutes ago, and I tried to be really impartial, and I couldn't, because I don't think it's country. I don't think any of the metrics listed that I listed earlier when we started this, or any other reasonable metric you could come up with that doesn't apply to most music on the radio, could be applied to that song. There's nothing country about it. There's a little bit of guitar on a repeat, like four or five chords that get repeated. In the music video, she's just standing in a thong with her tits out. The content of the music is not particularly country, as we defined earlier. It's not really country. The rest of the album may be different. I don't know. I have to go listen to it, unfortunately, and try not vomit. But I think that's an attempt of big record labels to try and cash in on that yet again. While it's cool to be country, and like people like Morgan Wallen are being edgy and getting arrested, and Zach Bryan's getting arrested, and they're weird edgy country boys. And I think it's going to be, I think that'll be the case for a while, until it gets co-opted by some lame people who end up being liberals like Tyler Childers. I'll just let that one lie. But I think that's where it is. I think it's going to be relevant for a while, and then it'll fade out again, and it'll just be us redneck nerds listening to it until it's relevant again in a few decades.
Did you read Isaac Simpson's article about propaganda and how he thinks that, just Beyonce putting out a country album is just a psyop to get white guys re-engaged in society? It's a good article. I recommend it. I'll send you a link.
I haven't read it, but I will if you recommend it.
Yeah, no, it's pretty good.
That's more or less all I had. So if you, John, and TR are good with it, unless you want to chime in at length, I'll approve these other speakers.
Yeah, you should definitely give Avis the mic, but give everyone the mic. Why not? Let's get weird.
Yeah, I'll approve Outgoing Misanthrope and Mr. Mike, and then we can just go around.
And Avis, definitely Avis.
Avis is not requested, but I can invite.
Invite, yeah.
Hey, Mike.
Going, guys? Can you hear me all right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you're coming in good.
Yeah, so, I mean, the point that I wanted to kind of bring up as a Tennessean, all my life, I work in and around. I've actually worked on the mechanical side, fixing these studios over there at Music Row. And,
Interesting.
I know people in the industry, and, I guess I'll start from the end and go back to the beginning. I know a few guys, and one in particular who is one of these country music kind of like ghostwriters. And, his biggest claim to fame is writing the lyrics for the English verse portion of some K-pop band's, breakout song or something. So we're starting from
Mama,
the end.
I made it.
Yeah. So we're starting from the end where it seems like, now Nashville Country Music is part of the network of global music entertainment products. So, and I really think this is evident, like if we go all the way back to the past, to how Nashville has changed. Like, for instance, the rink where the Preds used to play was called Gaylord Entertainment Company, right? It was a big part of Opryland, or they were the owner of Opryland back in the 90s. And, this is tied in very tightly to what is the radio side of the industry, which is CMT, country music television. It was the part of, the biggest part of like what got onto radio for the longest time, and especially with like, their TV entertainment products, they were something that they were started in Hendersonville, a place I know well, which is 30 minutes north of Nashville, in like the 70s, I want to say. And then, over the years, they've gone through acquisitions. I think it was first to Gaylord Entertainment Company, and then in 1997 to CBS Viacom. And we can see this steady stair step of what I like to call the snap track tried to seduce a pastor sound, which is how a lot of these industry plants in the beginning of like basically internet syndication of country music began, as you got a bunch of these touchy-feely tracks where a majority of the rhythm section is just the snap track and a light guitar and all this stuff. And it seems to be that it's the steady stair step into the corporatization of Nashville sound, because of course, like not soon after that, or like in the middle of all this, we also got Sony Music Nashville, gobbling up RCA, Columbia Nashville, and what was the other one? I think it's Arista. But we got there. It very quickly came in that from the 70s to the late 90s and the 2010s into a global entertainment product. And we see that, especially with the radio side of the business getting so tied up in these other interests are multinational corporations. I think this is a big contributing factor to why even some of the smaller breakout people now that, get their breakout track on TikTok of all things, play to this new country sound that's just horrible. It's not complex. It's not interesting. And, I don't like it. I don't like it like anybody else.
Well, it's never going to be complex or interesting because it's playing for an audience that is getting less complex and less interesting, and we see it in our own lives, even though we resist it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tom.
Hey guys, can you hear me? Okay, I'm driving.
Yeah, you're
It's a
coming in
little
good.
fuzzy, but it's all right.
This is amazing because I had a thought like 15 minutes ago and I still have it, and I always lose it in the spaces. And I think it's because you guys stay on topic, which is awesome. First and foremost, Mr. Double Dealer, good to meet you. I'm sorry Cinder is so mean to you, but that's just his love language. I wouldn't take it personal.
That's okay. You and I are mutuals on my main.
Something Cinder said, and I don't think it's a wrong rhetorically, of that Nashville killed country music. I think that's a perfectly robust argument to make. I promise not to take too long, but this is kind of esoteric.
Yeah, let it rip.
I only listened to Christian music growing up. And more than that, I was part of a group of people where we weren't allowed to listen to any rock music whatsoever, but my parents let us listen to Christian rock secretly. And there was this really weird thing that happened between, call it 1995 and 2005, where you had the contemporary Christian music scene, literally a magazine called CCM. Just imagine regular record labels, but smaller. More guaranteed dollar, because like the family Christian bookstore would buy all the albums, but it was a smaller market share. But it worked like the regular Christian market. Beneath that was an underground Christian music scene, which was, everybody laughs because they were into like real music, but it was real for us. Like those going to the hardcore shows, the metal shows, ska shows, like it was absolutely organic. It was Christian kids who wanted to play rock music. And it really blossomed and came to a head with a record label called Tooth and Nail Records, which you guys know, if you're into the metal or hardcore scene,
yes.
You know North Keen, that's one of their biggest bands. But
Yes,
they
sir.
had a ton of bands that were crossover successes commercially back when albums mattered, back when Tower Records mattered. And then they got obliterated because, and I think this is what happened to country in the larger picture, and it's happened to rap, and it's happened to jazz, it's happened to everything, is that you do good enough numbers that the middlemen minorities, and I don't mean that as an oblique reference to Jewish people, I mean those people who've figured out how to sit between producers and consumers in a way that both sides feel like they're benefiting, when in actuality it's that middleman minority that benefits. That it's just that insidious creep of line go up per year, which at the beginning it's great because the guy's smoking a cigar and he says, I'm going to make you a star, kid. And that, podunk kid becomes a multimillionaire. But over time, it becomes this focus group based industry. And so you got to take risks if you want high rewards. Rich Men North of Richmond should never have gotten popular, and it would be an amazing song that only a few people knew about, and every time someone new heard it, they'd love it. But instead, it went through the process that country music went through over 4 decades, or Christian music went over 1 decade. It went through that process in the space of about 10 days, where it was this heartfelt thing, and then it was discovered, and then it was hammered, and then it was passé. And I feel like that's
a really
what's
good
happening
point.
in country music. And I think it's happened to everything too. And I'm not a fucking socialist. I'm a capitalist, lowercase c. But uppercase C capitalism is a problem. And it's that problem because when it becomes year-on-year profit, like that's the only real motivator, you are always going to go towards the saccharine and the bland and the predictable. And that kills music. Because the whole point of music, it's the same 3 chords. But what does it mean to you and who's saying it? You know what I mean? So those were my thoughts. I think that the Christian music thing, I think there's going to be a rediscovery. Some of those bands at Tooth and Nail and some of the other labels were so good. One I'll hammer in particular, Starflyer 59. If you go back and check out that band, you will be blown away with the music they were making in the late 90s, because it sounds like it could have come out, you know, at the heyday of music, which was, you know, sometime between 2007 and 2012. That's like the peak. Like, it's an interesting thing, and thank you guys for making country music interesting, because I don't like country. I do like folk, but this was an awesome space, and I appreciate you letting me talk.
Yeah, it's interesting that you point out Tooth and Nail specifically, because I don't know it quite as well as country music, but like post-hardcore and hardcore and all of that stuff that came out of Tooth and Nail, Under Oath, and everything potentially associated was my bread and butter as a teenager and an early adult, and I admittedly still listen to it. I had Hawthorne Heights on last week. Don't tell anybody. What's up, Drew?
Sorry. Hey guys. I just wanted to sort of, double up on what Outgoing was talking about, because I feel like it goes a little deeper than music, this sort of, presence of the middleman, where it's sort of the making of an economy out of culture. And I think that's definitely something that we're gonna have to tackle. I think country music is definitely a perfect example of that, because it went from the Highwaymen and really great examples, and then it sort of just started going downhill. So, definitely a good example of how something that was a cultural, you know, staple that was really connected to the West in a large way, has become sort of, this misconstrued sort of, you know, just sort of a representation of where our country is even. And it's just and it's sad how it went from a cultural icon to sort of a cultural caricature.
That's a great way to put it, man.
Yeah, that's all I got. Wanted to.
Well, I think there's the only real thing, like, not to say that I don't think country music could make a comeback. I am indifferent if it does or doesn't. I don't think it could ever reach the levels of authenticity that it used to be. But like, I hear it a lot in new folk. I hear it a lot, and back in the double dealers' infancy, before it was even thing, you guys shared that kid, that I think he's like West Virginian or something like that, singing the Mountain Home song. I forget the name. You guys probably know, but that's one of the best things I've heard in a long time.
I'm going to disagree a little bit. Maybe it's just a matter of semantics. Just a second, Outgoing, and I'll throw it to you. I don't think. I guess I'll agree in part and disagree in the other half. I'll agree in the part in a sense that I don't think mainstream country is going to reach the same authenticity, but I think there is no shortage of people who make extremely good country music, like Charles Wesley Godwin. I listened to a lot on my drive back home today from the job site. Makes incredible, very touching music, and it's just him and a guitar most of the time. That being said, it's very hard to find those people because they're not on the radio, and unless you're relatively online and you make a point to look for these people or talk to other people who listen to, excuse me, we'll call it quote unquote niche country music, because it's not what most people are listening to, then it's hard to find. You'd never know he exists. And that's kind of the same way with people like, just a second, Jason Isbell, who doesn't make country music. I would say his music is more Americana, or maybe light rock in his older years. But he can charge $200 a ticket, and he will sell out every single venue he hosts. Nobody knows who Jason Isbell is. As far, again, back to my mainstream definition of people who don't even listen to country music knowing artists like Garth Brooks and George Strait and Reba McEntire. None of those people know who.
That, I'd say.
What's that?
I'm a good barometer for that, I'd say. I know those names and other names I don't know.
Right. Jason. No one knows who Jason Isbell is, but he can charge $200 plus a ticket for general admission, and people will happily, myself included, pay it because he makes incredible music and is an absolutely fantastic songwriter. So those people exist. They're just becoming harder to find because the Nashville and, I would say probably music in general is becoming a funnel, and it's being gate kept. So they're out there. You just have to make a larger and larger effort. And that's also, I was going to mention earlier, it probably, it also plays in some kind of way to, how easy it is to make music and the ways in which music is being distributed now. Like it's so easy for people to make music in general. And we saw this with the SoundCloud days and SoundCloud rappers, and it was all absolute trash, save for the one or two people like Post Malone who made it absurdly large. I mean, anybody can put music out, and that lowers the bar to enter the market, if you will, but it also floods the market with a bunch of shit.
Yeah, that's the main complaint I hear from music business types. It's just the dearth, the absolute oversaturation of stuff. Like, you're just so much less likely to make it nowadays with something quality because of the saturation.
Can I make a comment, or someone else next?
Go for it, boss.
So I'm going to go back to Mr. Richmond, north of Richmond, because my heart breaks for the guy, because he's like, I don't think he thought out that whole process. But I remember, oh man, of course, Lafayette Lee, who's got to be one of the best of us, by the way. Just if you don't follow him, you're foolish. Like, you should
not
follow
better
him.
than me.
I don't know, man.
Go on.
Lafayette's he's quite a man amongst men. And amongst men, I'm not, whatever. The point is that he shared a post that a buddy of mine, like an IRL friend, then shared with me via DM and was like, check this song out. And I remember opening it and listening to it and like a cloying clout cunt. Like, how many views does this have? Where am I at on the cool meter? Because like I knew within just a few seconds, I was like, oh shit, like that's one of those songs. And I was like, oh man, it's already got like 800,000 views. I'm like, too late to have cred. So if you go look at that song now, it's got something like 50 million views. It's insane how quickly that thing shot up. But it is the recording. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. Finish your thought.
So if you look at the recording, like look at the music video. So what he's using is these pan-parabolic microphones. Those are not the like most advanced thing in the world, but you need to know somebody that knows sound design to like know you need to use that. Most people just use their phone. Maybe they'll get a directional or an omnidirectional mic or whatever. But he's using mics that show that somebody wanted to record quality while minimizing any kind of background. Like, there is value to that video. But after I watched the video like 4 times in a row, I'll admit it, I really liked the song when I first heard it. I immediately jumped to the source, which I think has been changed. I don't think the original, it was because it was like West Virginia folk something. It was like a website. Yeah. And there were hundreds at least of other performers putting up songs. They weren't all good. It's not all my cup of tea, but I was looking through like the view count. And this is very early in that thing before that song got co-opted by the GOP or whatever. But there's just so many of them out there. I'm not a music guy. I still listen to Under Oath almost daily, Double Zero, like almost daily, and I sing along to every single song. Like, I'm not
2 of us.
Okay, I'm lame like that, I guess. I don't know. I feel like we peaked. But whatever the case, like when I find a thing, I just like cling to it forever. So like the music's out there. And but short of that like nostalgia of wanting to go back to like the oddies or whatever, I'm not a music person. I don't care about the new thing. I'm not looking for new bands. I like the bands I like. But there are people out there that do that vampiric kind of like find the next new thing. On the flip side of it, there are lots of producers, lowercase p, of music out there. And like the worst thing that can happen is that they get discovered or they get successful, which is fucked up, right? Because, and you know, there's a certain gentleman in this chat who I think should be quote unquote discovered or whatever, but there's a couple of them actually. But
thank you, Tom. Thank you.
Of course.
Clearly he meant you, John.
It's a lot of people. And it's this thing where you want success for them, but you're also afraid of how it's going to damage the product. And there's a realism that comes into the art when it's part-time. And if we're going to talk about coup complete things, which we don't have to, but one thing we got to do is we got to keep artists in cages. We got to keep them poor, angry, and starving. And that sucks, but that's the way it is if we want that legitimacy. And I do think we can retain legitimacy. We just have to lower the status. Because a real musician is going to make music no matter what you do, no matter what rules you put on it, no matter what style you make popular. the musician will make music forever, and it'll happen. But I don't know. I think it was Arthur. No, someone else said about it is that whole trying to turn the culture into a commodity. That's what destroys it. That's all.
Yeah, I do like that there are a fair number of YouTube channels that just like Western AF is one of them, although the name is kind of gimmicky. All they do is promote new country and Western artists, which is great. That's how I found a lot of people that I really, really like now. But just to circle back briefly about just a second, TR, just circle back briefly about watching how the evolution of Oliver Anthony happening in a matter of days rather than a decade, like other bands and industries or whatever. I don't know if he's a mutual with anyone else, but Chase Steele is a mutual of mine on my main. And it was interesting to watch him. I don't know if he was the first person to post it on Twitter. It doesn't really matter. He was one of the first to post a clip of Oliver Anthony, even though he posts clips of country and Western and bluegrass music all the time. To watch in a matter of a couple of days, because I talked to him about it as it was happening. I was DMing him over a couple of days, it getting, a couple hundred views and then 1,000 and then, over 1 million impressions and views. And suddenly people were threatening him with being like a Russian agent or agent of Mossad or some kind of bullshit. And people were finding his address and doxing him and threatening his life. And he had to take time off of work to sit on his couch with a rifle because people were concerning him so much. So it's kind of striking how people are so, I don't know if it's people are just too jaded these days, or everyone thinks someone is out to profit off something or get something out of it, as opposed to just doing something or posting something purely because they enjoy it or they're interesting. But it's crazy to see. I guess it's just so strange to people that they can't even fathom that some guy would make a music, a song because it's important to him and it's relevant and it's, it speaks to woes other people have, and then someone just posting it because they enjoy the song. Like the sincerity people like can't wrap their head around, and that's really strange and unfortunate to me. What's up, TR?
Yeah, no, just to kind of, you know, put a cap on that. We live in the age of the psyop, and like the big algorithm. So of course, the more conspiracy minded schizo brain people like myself are gonna see the meteoric rise of just some guy and automatically be suspicious. And I don't know the gentleman from Adam, but I hope nobody's attacking him. But it is, I see that and I think, oh, okay, what the hell's going on here? What is this trying to do? Because these days it's just there's no such thing as a coincidence. Maybe back then you could have had something uh rise organically, but when it comes to these large institutions, and I realize like halfway through this I sound like a complete fucking schizo brain, but go with me on it.
Yes.
Can I? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
And then I just, before I give the mic back, I just wanted to say I think also there was a large split between what is country and what is Western. Because, I mean, you and I talk all the time about how much we like Marty Robbins, but that guy, I mean, his most popular album came out in the 50s. What happened to like actual cowboy country? And I'll give it back.
No,
Go ahead,
I just
Tom.
wanted to say about the psyop thing. You're not wrong. The instincts are totally there, and there's anytime you're fooling around with counter intel, you have to treat every single thing as three different things, like of equal probability that it's legitimate, that it's illegitimate, that it's random, that it's not random. You have to look at it that way. That's unfortunate, but I think what we're seeing here with, well, let's say Oliver Anthony, we've been hammering him, so I don't think like Con Inc. contacted some former drunkard, like country guy in West Virginia and was like, hey kid, here, play this one, kid. Like, I don't think it happened like that, but the turnaround so fast now between, I was saying this in smoking chat, the ice wall, like we see things so clearly in the future, but we are prohibited from actually doing anything about what we see. And I think a reason for that is because there's just so much concerted effort to take advantage of the moment, because of the 20th century. I don't think the CIA and KGB both got involved in the arts, but there was still this really long turnaround time. They had to discover the sex pot or the sex icon and then cultivate them and then like lace the message in. And it would take years for Elvis to destroy America. It took a long time for jazz music to like make gay sex cool. Like those things took time, right? But now, because it's tuned, because there's so many digital tools for exploitation, like within minutes, I guarantee you, somebody watched that Oliver Anthony thing, made a call, sent an email, someone jumped in a Slack. 15 minutes later, a VP was ready to make the decision. The money got released, things started moving, and that poor ginger had no idea what the fuck was coming at him because he just thought, holy shit, I'm going to be famous. It's like, no, boy, like you're going to be used and forgotten. That happens a lot. So your intuition's dead on, but we do have to be careful to not. The sitting on the couch with the gun really resonated with me. You know what I mean? Like someone just shared a song they really liked because it was a good song, and it turned into them being Mossad. Huh. Funny but sad.
It just as a very slight aside, it keeps throwing me off whenever John tells Tom to go ahead because I'm also Tom. I don't know if he's referring to me or you. So.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine. It's just coinky dink.
It took him weeks to train me to respond to Tom, so I appreciate that he hammers it home.
You still need to respond to JL.
That's true, but my name is Tom, so like
it's Jackson Laverne. That's what it stands for.
Why are you telling people this?
I'm a big fan. No, I'm okay. Good. I thought I was like bad for not following.
Hey, so Jackson, do you think that success is attainable in the modern industry without the scepter of Mossad's approval?
It depends on what you mean by success.
Fame, fortune, money, women, khakis.
No. Not really. Because like I said before, there are plenty of people now, and also let's say in the late 80s with Steve Earle. No one knows who Steve Earle is. He wrote all of his own songs. He wrote absolutely fucking incredible songs. Could sell out any venue he wanted to, name any price he wanted to. No one knows who he is. By his own metric, yeah, he was successful. He, had a roof over his head and he ate every night because of his music and his tunes and his guitar playing. No one knows who he is, and he will fade even further into obscurity, except for a handful of us who are still playing this music.
Go ahead, TR.
No, I'm wondering, like, where's the our guy? And he doesn't need to necessarily be like Moon Man or something like that. But where is the
you think we're going for a Moon Man redux? You think we can bring him back into the limelight?
No, but I'm just saying it doesn't have to be that far at all. But like, where's the guy in our sphere who just makes music and puts it out there and is on the TL? Because I don't see him, and maybe I'm just not looking hard enough.
Well, that is a bigger conversation that I've wanted to have with Mike of Pole, because he makes music, but Mike, you'll forgive me as I've called it to your face. Like he makes electro freakout music. Like
okay.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
It's a really specific genre for activating MK Ultra assets.
I put the codes in. I did put the codes in.
Yeah, it is functional in that regard, but as far as like chart toppers, I got a friend of mine, he used to make rap music. Like he can make pop music. But, I've often thought about that. Like, can we manufacture using similar techniques? Can we manufacture an artist? I mean, obviously they have to be talented to begin with, but, having ghostwriters is not an odd thing, right? Like some of the best musical acts that we know that we still consider good had extra writers and people that could keep them producing. So I think
Kenny Rogers made an entire career off of one song that he didn't even write.
Right.
It was a different time, though.
Yeah.
I feel like that's one thing about the superstardom thing, because so many of these artists are just trying to be the artists that their dad listened to, or like that they heard when they were a kid. Like that's really the icon. But like people don't buy albums and then play them over and over again. Like, the way we were talking about JL, sorry, I mean the Double Dealer and I were talking about Under Oath. Like, they earned that from us by cutting an album that we heard and then just never let go of. And it's the repetition that creates that bond. But nowadays, like, if you really like a song, you'll like listen to it for a couple days over and over again, and then it's gone forever, except for like when you re-listen a year later. So I think that avenue's closed for everyone. And I think you're putting a lot of emphasis on skill. I mean, does anyone call Taylor Swift skilled?
I would call her a skilled songwriter, yes.
She can
but
sing,
does she
man.
write her song?
She did.
Yeah, but lots of girls can sing. In fact, most girls
it
can
takes
sing
a lot
if
to
you
sell
fucking
your
right.
soul.
I bet Avis can sing. Hey, pick up the mic, Avis, and hum a few bars. Nothing. Anyway, really quick, Mike, I don't want to pigeonhole you into that genre. I'm sure you can do other stuff. Just to be clear to everyone and to you.
Yeah, no, I'm working on. I do like playing with remix culture elements. Not to go on to myself, but I am working on a Weird Al Yankovic style parody of Teenage Dirtbag right now, and that's going to be redoing the full song as a. It's a storytelling little trope between an online incel and a right-wing e-girl kind of thing. So, and that was at the prodding of Gio Pinichetti, another good friend on the timeline. So,
modern Dostoevsky, folks.
Real quick, TR, it's really funny that you said, I believe it was you, if I'm mistaken, I'm sorry. But the fact that you said that all modern day musicians just want to make stuff that their dad was into, immediately made me think about the Hank Williams trio of Hank Williams Sr. and then Hank Williams Jr. making like outlaw kind of cocaine country, fucking bitches and enjoying life and the big city is shit. And then his son, Hank Williams III, just making complete fucking trash. That sounds like some shit his father might have enjoyed, but probably fucking hates. So I think that was hit the nail on the head, maybe without you realizing it.
That wasn't me, but I do
I'm sorry.
detest Hank the Third. Anyway, no, I asked a question before about like when the split between country and western actually happened, because I don't see actual cowboys.
That happened in the 90s.
You think?
The country western? Yeah, well, I remember it being referenced. My dad was a big stoner that listened to rock and roll. Like, my dad didn't like Pink Floyd, so he didn't allow it in the house. So like when I discovered Pink Floyd at like age 20, it was this grand moment of like, fuck you, Dad. Because like it just blew my mind how good it was. And to this day, we still fight about it. Oh man, dude, he's a Doors fan. I thought the Doors were good for far too long.
I like the Doors. Fuck you.
Well, the Doors was really good if you consider all the stuff that the CIA has put out. That was some of the best.
You got to read Dave McGowan's book on that. The scenes from the canyon. But anyway, that's not country.
All right, Misanthrope. Then who do you think the last big, I guess, Western star was, as opposed to country?
Well, no, I don't have I only have data points because I didn't listen to any country or Western growing up at all. But I just remember that discussion happening of like sometimes at these like church gatherings, like someone would say from the stage, like, there's country and there's Western, and everyone would cheer, and I had no idea what they were talking
about. Yeah, I mean, I could anecdotally say probably the late 50s or 60s, yeah, but I don't like make a point to delineate like when I'm listening. I generally just listen to stuff from particular eras, but I'd venture to say it's even earlier than that. Yeah.
I want to say that the separation was in 1993, 94 after Randy Travis's Wind in the Wire, where it just started to separate and it just dissipated, man. It blew away with that. It's just like the Expanse, the Wyoming, the Nebraska, the Texas, all of that sort of went away from country. And then it just became about the bars and the country road and less about the frontier.
It was probably when they stopped having farm hands and started just buying more tractors, I would guess. Like, if you're gonna say when it stopped.
Illegal immigration killed country and Western music.
That's a good point.
When
so 1986.
When it stopped being ranch hand and started being rancheros. Am I right?
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't mean to stomp on TR, but now you look at that. That's actually a really good point because if you look at the
Yeah, no,
music the Beaners
that
listen
actually
to,
makes a lot of sense.
yeah, like what do they call that? I don't remember. There's some like Mexican music that all those like both
Mariachi?
the
It's called
it's not
ranchero.
mariachi. No, that's Spanish.
It's called ranchero music.
No,
It's
there's
that
ranchero and there's another one too, but it's reggaeton is the ripoff of what it was. Whatever
oh,
it was, like
but that's
reggaeton like stole it.
ranchero is like Mexican cowboy music. Reggaeton is like the doom, the doom, the doom. It's like
Yeah,
Caribbean.
but
It's
when
Puerto
you look at
Rican.
that,
It's
it's the
Caribbean.
black influence. Like so they took the folk
Afro.
music of the whatever. They took the folk music of northern Mexico and then they like made it so girls would shake their ass to it. And that's reggaeton. But but if you look at it, the core of it is that folk music. Kind of weird.
Well, yeah, there's nothing left of Western now, and that's for sure. There is no West anymore. The West has fallen.
Yeah, but competency crisis means a lot more like manual labor jobs are going to happen again, and so you're going to have people who are like working from dawn to dusk. Some of them are going to sing, and so it'll come back.
Yeah, and I think it'll come back a lot in the South. Like I do believe the West and the Southwest will be largely uh, Latin American.
Yeah, TR.
I do want to say I do put some of the blame on the fall of country music to Chris Christopherson when he did that gay ass movie.
Blade?
No,
Yeah,
no,
what?
no, no, no.
What?
What the fuck is it
That was
called?
hilarious, Cinder.
No, he plays like a country western singer, and it's like it's literally gay. People think it's like they did a remake of it a couple years ago with Lady Gaga
Um,
and
I'm
what's his
looking.
face? Bradley Cooper.
House of Gucci?
Yes, no, you got it, 100%.
American
Oh,
Sniper.
She wasn't in.
No, it was Joker 2.
A Star is Born.
Yes,
Okay.
that's the one. Yeah, Chris Christopherson plays like the main love interest in that, and like he and Bradley Cooper just made country music to like the wider mainstream just seem like either fuckboys, drunks, or just like giant pussies. I mean, it was yeah.
This is kind of a harsh derail, but has anyone heard the term splinternet before?
No.
So, without getting too deep into the nerd shit, the internet is basically just a bunch of computers talking to each other. We take it for granted that it's there, but what it really is physically is networks of networks. As countries start to go to war, they're going to leverage networks against each other, and the only way to prevent that is to like physically air gap themselves from each other. And so if you start to get regions of the world that cut themselves off from the global internet, you're going to get this like rebirth of localization. It'll still be technologically advanced because they'll still connect their computers to each other. But like when China, like the Great Firewall, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like a hard cut between regions. If and when that happens, you're probably going to see a blossom of like local music, but it'll still be shared in that weird way that we do music now. Just as an aside.
I only
Who,
talk
who
through Dixie cups on strings.
who do we have to nuke to get more good country music back? Because I'm willing to do it.
A lot of cities. A lot of them got to go down. Memphis first. Oh no, I meant Nashville. Oh no, don't nuke Memphis. Oh shit.
Oh, so too late. It's on its way. Huh,
Well,
you wouldn't be able to tell.
Sorry, your guys' e-girl dropped off.
Yeah, I told her to leave and come back, and that might fix her technical issues, but she has not returned.
And, no, they never listened, so she just heard leave.
She just left.
No.
She went to go hang out with a bear.
Well, I mean, that's all really the ranting that I had. I think I mostly got it out of my system, except fuck Rascal Flats. But
I support that.
Tell me about Kenny Chesney and flip flops.
oh my god. He is really riding on Jimmy Buffett's coattails, which just makes me mad to no end because Jimmy Buffett wasn't a great. This kind of plays back into the sincerity thing. He was not a great musician or even a singer, but we love his songs, and I grew up listening to his stuff almost obsessively because we knew he was on a beach drunk somewhere trying to chat up the local brown ladies, and that's why we love it, and that's why it's good. And he's just riding that wave, and I hate him.
My favorite Hank Williams is Chris Farley as Hank Williams Jr. on SNL.
I haven't seen that. I'm gonna look it up.
You're kidding, dude.
I've never watched an entire SNL
I also
episode.
have not seen it. I think I've seen one. I think I saw the one when they did the 30 Rock, like the live 30 Rock, or was that's not SNL?
No, that's way after. This is like SNL 1995, 1996.
Oh yeah, I got it.
They had a little pocket there that was while Norm was doing Weekend Update that was just really quite excellent. There she goes. She joined. Okay.
Holy shit.
Do you have your list, Avis? Do you want to bring us through the history of country music?
So first of all, talking trash about Hank III, we should address that.
Go ahead.
He sounds just like his grandfather, first of all. And he's got several good songs. He's certainly not pop country.
That's true. Do you have any of his albums that you listen to a lot?
The one with the 3
Railroad Irons
on it. Yeah, with Country Heroes. And if you don't like songs about, pills and drinking and cocaine, then you probably won't like it. But it's good.
So he has just a handful of good songs out of 12 studio albums?
Yes.
But okay.
He makes some punk music too, so.
I mean, I guess that's one where I'm looking at a picture of him and he looks like I don't know, a hillbilly Vanilla Ice.
Okay. Well, hillbilly's good. So.
I mean, I'm a hillbilly, so that's not a denigration. I'm just making an observation.
Yep. I don't know. I had a lot to say. I couldn't activate my mic. I don't know what was going on. A lot of the country I listen to now is Americana. It's not on the radio. It's just on Spotify.
Like who?
S.G. Goodman, Sierra Farrell.
Yeah, I like Sierra Farrell a lot.
Me too. Her new album's great.
Yes.
I listened to full albums in a row. Can't remember who said that doesn't happen anymore, but it does. Who else?
We got Aaron Tippin in here.
Oh, God, I love Aaron Tippin. That mustache. She's so handsome. Who else we got here?
Does he still have the mustache? I mean, that was 30 years ago.
Well, sure. He can live in that moment.
He still has the mustache. He looks great for however old he is. 65 years old. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm impressed. And he's jacked. That's interesting. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interject.
No,
Robert Earl Keen.
Yes.
Yes, he's fantastic. Brent Cobb. I love Brent Cobb, and he writes his own songs.
Yeah, he's good. Yeah,
he is good. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think there's no shortage of good Americana people coming up who get some. I mean, it's relative, but decently good traction, at least on Spotify, which makes me happy. Makes me less inclined to blackpill about the state of affairs.
I agree.
But that stuff, I do think, like I said before, that stuff can be kind of hard to find unless you're being relatively diligent about it. Because even Spotify, like their Discover playlists and like Brent Cobb Radio, for example, is going to be really redundant. And it's going to be, if you listen to Brent Cobb and other people like him, you're not going to find a lot of new stuff. You kind of have to hunt for it, which is frustrating, but that's just the way it is.
Yeah, the discovery is terrible, honestly.
Yeah.
Is there a difference between Americana and country western, or is that just an all-encompassing term that we're using for country western?
I think it's really, really hazy when it comes to country and western and Americana. Like a lot of people are really, really hard to nail down. So I just, for the sake of ease, I generally just lump them together. Personally.
I feel like there's something a little more low key about Americana.
I could see that.
It's kind of I would say it's more a distinction in vibes than anything else. Maybe instrumentation. I'm sure there's a formal definition somewhere.
Yeah, I'll co-sign on that. It's more chill, generally. Yeah, I like that. I like that
People
framing.
say Americana. I always think of John Prine. I know he gets tossed around as a country western singer as well, but I feel like his later stuff as he got older would be more Americana.
I agree. Another big sad. He didn't write most of his bangers like Clay Pigeons, Spanish Pipe Dream, two of some of my in my top 20 favorite songs. He didn't write either of those, which is unfortunate, but he performed them amazingly, so that's okay.
What's the newest stuff that's any good? Do you guys have any contributions in that regard? If I'm looking for something new, cutting edge, but with soul and authenticity.
Well, when you
Not
say cutting
really.
edge, do you mean like some kind of departure, like something different from what you would generally call country, or do you just mean like sort of boilerplate country, but it's new and it's good?
I withdraw the term cutting edge.
Well, if you want something a little stranger, dare I say psychedelic or kind of out there, I would say Sturgill Simpson, who does a lot of psychedelics and makes very interesting country music. One of his albums is called Meta Modern Sounds in Country Music, which is good. He also makes very good bluegrass. Otherwise, if you just want generic country that's really, really good, I think Zach Bryan is bang for a buck, probably the best right now. And it's a damn fucking shame he's not on the radio because he writes some fantastic stuff and he's a great performer. I just saw him a few months, 6 months ago.
Mike, you got anything?
No, not really, because I don't listen to anything new. Most everything I go back to, country wise, bluegrass wise, is stuff that, I my parents exposed me to as a kid. I don't listen to any of the new stuff now. I really like Nickel Creek. I know that's a little bit outside the ball house, but I also like who sang that outlaw country song, E. He finds his wife cheating on him when he's great. But I don't have anything new. Matt Mason, I like Matt Mason, but most everything that I listen to is stuff that came out years ago.
Well, go ahead, Misanthrope.
So, just to tie it back to the faggy little world I come from, something that's always fascinating to me because my parents listened to a lot of like old music that I just was like, I thought that was music, and then later I found out it was like classic or classic rock, whatever, is the inspirations and drives of like where a song comes from. So I have a guilty pleasure. It's a fastball song, the only fastball song any of us know, because who the fuck knows whatever the songs they made. I just recently found out that fastball song, the "Where Were They Going Without Ever Knowing the Way" thing, that was based on an incident where an old woman and an old man got in a car to go to a rock concert or a folk music concert in Texas. And then they drove to Arkansas and then Louisiana and then drove off a road and then died of exposure and starvation because they like their dual dementia hit. And so they drove like 600 miles. They just kept driving. That was why that song was written. But if you look at like why I know that song, it's because I saw it in the mall when I was like a kid. And like I was like, oh, this is like current rock music. So I'm going to like imprint on this song. When we look at like why songs get written versus like why they're popular, there's this big disconnect. And that's where the labels and the record execs, they used to sit on their throne because they got to decide what came to market, but they didn't decide why the songs were written. Now, maybe I'm being a little bit too optimistic here. And I know a lot of us in this room, certain of us in this room, like to bag on the writers of our crowd because some are good and some are okay and some are not so good, right? But like you don't know which piece you put out is going to just implant itself in the head of a person who's then going to write a song. It's not that good, but it gets picked, it gets selected. Like I guarantee you, Oliver Anthony Like somebody put that idea in his head. He was at the bar or he was at church or he was somewhere and somebody said that line. They probably said it more clunky than he did about like rich men north of Richmond. Like he probably made it pretty, but I guarantee you the idea came from someone else. Because no offense to any musicians in the room, but musicians are like birds. They're pretty, they're loud, but they're generally pretty dumb. And so they need guidance about what to think about. And so just think about that when you're putting out your work. You have no idea how it's going to influence people. And it might feel like a waste of time now. It might feel like, oh, it's only like 10 likes on Substack. But if you are eloquent enough, it will pull those heartstrings. It will jog the mind of a person. And then they will create based on your skill level. How good were you at relating the thought into print? And so there's a value to it. I know we're not all going to get super famous for our Substack pieces, but there's a value there, and you don't know how it's going to land or how it's going to be interpreted. So it's kind of a weird white pill, like an intoxicating one, but there's a value to what we do because it does influence people, and then they take that influence and they run with it. Just a random thought I had.
Avis, is there anything out there that's any good right now that's new and interesting?
I've listened to the new Sierra Farrell about 100 times, that album.
See, that strikes down the nobody listens to anything multiple times.
Trail of Flowers, yeah. It's really good.
Something worth looking into. And she's a woman. Look at that.
She is. What do you know?
What do you know?
Avis, what do you think of Bella White?
I haven't heard of Bella White.
What? Very surprising.
Okay.
If you like Sierra Farrell, I think you would like Bella White as well. She's I would put her on the same tier. I think she's very, very good. A good songwriter. Yeah, very nice stuff.
Thank you. I like new artists.
Dr. Parse, anything new that's floating the boat in the medical world?
I don't really listen to country very much other than the old Randy Travis stuff. And for most of this discussion, I've had no idea what any of your nerds are talking about.
Did you turn into the front end on JL's academic paper on the history of country music?
I might have missed that part.
Oh, how I envy you. Well, that's everything for the Double Dealer tonight. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, it's been a lot of fun. I'm glad I had some people to rant to. Finally, usually I'm just ranting to the dogs and my wife, who frankly don't care. So it's been a lot of fun. Really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for stopping by.